is no doubt that each of us, with the aid of the forces that are at play, are realizing that we can see without the need for sensory awareness, without the need for our street smarts, our intuition, and our interrelatedness or experience of oneness. And this seeing gives us the ability to see the mysteries that have been thus far hidden in plain sight, giving us the ability to not only see the meanings of these stories that are told, but see the meanings of every story, every experience that we have in life from now on. So again, there's one of those stories that is filled with sacred symbols. But now, whereas these symbols were mysteries before, even though we recognize them as aspects of our own psyche, they now become keys for us to open every door in ourselves and in every being we encounter. So this story is about two young boys who were orphans, and they worked in a bakery where they earned just a pittance shoveling wood into the ovens. But one of the boys was called Abu Shah, which means father of evil, and the other boy was called Abu Kir, which means father of good. Now one day Abu Shah said to Abu Kir, "We are earning nothing here, and I have heard that there is money to be earned because there is a great harvest taking place in the south. Why don't we go there?" So it was agreed that they would travel south to the lush harvest fields where reaping was taking place. So, filling their knapsacks with bread and cheese and flasks of water, they set out in the direction of south. Now it wasn't very long before the heat of the day reached them, and Abu Shah said to Abu Kir, "Here, let us stop and rest a while, and we'll eat your bread and drink your water. And when yours is done, we can partake of mine." So this is what they did. Abu Shah and Abu Kir shared Abu Kir's bread and water and cheese until it was gone. But of course it wasn't long before hunger and thirst took over them again. But when Abu Kir asked Abu Shah to share his bread and cheese and water, he refused. So Abu Kir was left hungry and thirsty. So this went on for days, Abu Shah refusing to share what he had, and Abu Kir growing more thirsty and hungry by the day. So it came to a crossroads in the road. By this time Abu Kir was weak from hunger and thirst. But Abu Shah said to Abu Kir, I'm going to take the easy road along here. What are you going to do? And Abu Kir, now in his great state of thirst and hunger, said, what I do know is that this is a parting of our ways, since we cannot find agreement and you choose the easy path. I will take the rocky road up the mountain here. So even though he was beset with hunger and thirst and weak from lack of sustenance, Abu Kir set out on the rocky road up the mountain, leaving Abu Shah to follow his path. Now Abu Kir climbed, exhausted, but to his great surprise, he came to a plateau, and on that plateau there was a lushness, fruit trees, a well, and there he sated himself with the lush, ripe fruit that was on the tree, and slaked his thirst in the well that was there. But after partaking of food and drink, of course, lethargy fell on him, so he sat under the fig tree. And as he sat in that place where we often find ourselves, that in between world, he heard voices. He looked around. He thought, is it the birds? Is it the squirrels in the trees? But when he stopped wondering what it was that was speaking to him, he listened. And from the sounds, he gleaned the messages. One was, don't you know that cobbler who lives in poverty with his family, hardly scraping enough to keep bread on the table for them, that he's resting on a wealth, because under his floorboards there is gold. And then it seemed the voice continued. Maybe it was a dialogue. But it said, and don't you know that city that has no water, that has to buy water? If only they realized that if they dug under the city gate, there is a reservoir. And then the voice, or was it another voice, said, yes, and that kingdom where the princess is ailing and they've found no cure for her. Don't they realize that if the king's hunting hound is sacrificed and the flesh given to her, that she will be healed? So Abu Kir, without pondering, was it one voice? Was it three voices? He noted the information that was given to him, and he decided that this is what he would do. He would go to the cobbler. He would go to the city. He would go to the kingdom. And so he set out. And indeed, his footsteps led him to the village, where indeed there was the little shop where the cobbler plied his trade. So on the pretext that he needed his shoes repaired, Abu Kir went to the cobbler's shop. And indeed he asked the cobbler to repair his shoes for him. And this the cobbler did immediately for just a few pence. But Abu Kir had a thought, so he said to them, I'm a traveller and I have nowhere to stay for the night. Could I stay in your shop? And so the cobbler agreed, and he left, locking Abu Kir in when he left for the evening. Immediately, Abu Kir prized open the floorboards of the little shop, and indeed found beneath them the cache of gold. So when the cobbler came back in the morning, he could not believe his eyes, for there in front of him was wealth such as he would never have imagined. Now the cobbler, being a good man, said, we can share the gold. But Abu Kir said, no, I need just several coins to take me to Damascus. And so, leaving the cobbler to enjoy his newfound wealth, Abu Kir left to seek the city that had no water. So again, his feet found their way, and there it was, the city that had to buy water. And the first thing he did was ask for a glass of water. And people said, don't you know that we have to buy our water? But Abu Kir asked, and indeed the people were such that even though they had to pay for their water, they gave him water to drink. So Abu Kir said to them, don't you know that you rest on a great reservoir? Well, the people were intrigued, so they took Abu Kir to their leader, and the leader inquired of him, what do you mean? Abu Kir said, give me 12 strong men and shovels, and I will show you. So Abu Kir guided them to the city gates, where he asked the men to dig, and sure enough, a great well was tapped, enough to keep the city of Damascus rich and flowing with the water of life. Now, of course, they wanted to reward Abu Kir, but he said, no, I need just a coinage to take me to the great kingdom that has a princess who is ailing. So again this was given, and he made his way and found himself at the kingdom where all the people were sad. So Abu Kir said to them, "Take me to your king, because I have the cure for the princess." Now when Abu Kir was taken to the palace was adorned with the heads, the skulls of those who had tried and had their heads lopped in trying to save the princess. So when he was brought before the king said, "Don't you know that if you fail, your fate will be that of all those you saw hanging from the palace walls?" But undaunted, Abu Kir went and was brought into the presence of the princess and demanded that the hunting hound of the king be sacrificed and its flesh given to the princess. This was done, and she was brought to full health. Now the king, of course, said, "You have earned my daughter as your bride, but tell me, what would you ask of me?" Abu Kir said, "Build a shop, a bakery shop, where all the bread is given freely to those who come." And indeed, this was done. Everyone who was in need could find their way to the bakery that provided the bread freely to those who came. Now, as for Abu Shah, he had found his way to the harvest fields, but he tired quickly of again the hard work that was required of him. So he set out on the road again, and inevitably found his way. When hungry and thirsty, he asked for alms and was told, "Go to the bakery that gives the food freely and to all." So of course, when Abu Shah went to the bakery, there he found his old companion, Abu Kir, and demanded, "Tell me, how did you find this wealth?" And Abu Kir told him the story of finding the orchard with the fig tree and the well, and the rest of the story. So, of course, Abu Shah demanded, "Show me where I can find it." So Abu Kir guided his friend Abu Shah to the fig tree, but it was barren and dry, as was the well. But as they stood under the barren tree, again there were the voices, or maybe It was just the one voice, but it demanded, "What are your names?" And Abu Shah gave his name, Abu Shah, father of evil. And Abu Kir stated, Abu Kir, father of good. And the voice said, each will be given according to his name. And with that voice, or was it three, became the three Afrids who devoured Abu Shah. The seeing that requires no sensory awareness, the seeing that reveals the mysteries that have been hidden in plain sight from us, as we thought that there was only seeing through our senses, our eyes, our ears, our feelings, our tastes. Now we can see. What is the mystery hidden in this story? Like the mysteries hidden in everyone's story. If we can see its meaning, then we know we can see. What is its meaning? What is the mystery in this story, hidden in plain